Welcome back to another episode of the Day After podcast, and we have a special video for you all here. We have a winners ranking. That's right. If you see the screen in front of you right now, we currently have 42 different winners here, currently blacked out. Yeah, we're gonna be getting into it and see who's the worst winners according to us and who's the best.
Yep. So basically what we did was if you saw our season ranking way back then, we kind of did it in a similar way where we basically from number 1 to 42, obviously the two-time winners, they each of their individual wins are ranked. So we assign them, and the lower you score, the less points you get. So person that is in 42nd place on my list will get 1 point, and same with his, and then everything gets added up, and then the rankings are built from there. So we did not have this. There were a few we agreed upon. However, as you'll see when we get to certain people, if there are certain ties, it's because the numbers are just added that way. And then basically the tiebreaker went to the person that was ranked higher on the whomever's list. And so am I missing anything on the kind of the structure?
No, you pretty much got it. We should also clarify how we each decided how we wanted to rank them. Because I know we had talked about it a little bit, and ultimately I thought that we should honestly do both sides, where you kind of went more on the fan side, where it's who do you like more, and I went more game bots way, where I'm looking more who did I think played the better games.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was obviously personal preference is going to come in it, but as well as I was thinking all right, why I might have ranked someone higher than someone else could be because I'm if it was kind of an uphill battle and I liked how they did it as opposed to this, or it really depends, or their own personal journey throughout it, something like that, or if they played also if they played a dominant game. Just because you played a dominant game does that mean I rank you high. It has to be really good dominant game and not boring or too obvious.
You like the surprise in it as well,
for the crazy odds.
I did a lot of if I think that person could replicate that game, if they played in a way that is you couldn't transplant that kind of game into another season and perform well, I would typically rate you lower. But if you are able to play a dominant game, even if it's boring, I still ranked you very high because if it's a dominant game that can be used again on a different season.
Yeah, which will be very interesting because for a little hint at Fort, Joe actually ranked Tommy Sheehan higher than I did, which I think you were surprised. I would imagine you were surprised.
I thought you would put him higher, honestly. I thought I was going to have to defend putting him that low.
I mean, we'll talk about when we get him, but are you ready to get into this?
Yeah, so I guess we can alternate who wants to start sharing with announcing who everyone is. And I'll take it away here. So first off here in last place, we have Amber Berkich. Right there. Yeah, ultimately she was ranked not last on either of our lists, but second to last on both of our lists. So she comes in here at a measly 4 points. And I mean, ultimately she wins because of one of the first bitter juries, well-known bitter juries of Survivor of we don't want to give Rob the win. So I guess we're voting for Amber.
Yeah, and I mean, there is some merit to winning an all-star season, which is why she wasn't at the absolute bottom. But like, at the same time, it was a very Boston Rob heavily driven like game. And so like, like it was hard to like get behind like Amber winning.
Mhm.
Which is why you would, like I'd say like the best thing about her win and stuff is like, it's a nice little Romeo, or I wouldn't say Romeo Juliet, but like a nice little love story between these two, and it played out, and them being still married to this day.
Yeah.
Low-key, saying it out loud is pretty inspiring. So much so that, like, well, on their on the 20th anniversary of Survivor, like they were able to go out there in all winter season as husband and wife. It's just like everyone kind of knew that Amber was like not the greatest winner.
Yeah, she was definitely going into even the winners at war. She was probably at the bottom of everyone's list of those winners. That is kind of no exception here. She's I mean her win really isn't super replicable. I mean she has to play with a very aggressive player to get to the end, and also that jury has to not like that aggressive player. Like that is essentially her game, which it worked, but like if you ran that 1,000 times in different people in different scenarios, it's not going to go her way very often.
No, especially nowadays, where I wouldn't say nowadays it's not a bitter jury. It's more so of like strategic gameplay and like how you played. Like Mike got a lot of crap, in season 42, using that as the latest example, because he went about it as playing an honest game or a very loyal game. And then when you play like that, it's like tough to like, justify what you did. Other than that, people really respect strategy and stuff. And like, I mean, using Rob as like a meat shield in a regard, or like a hate shield, I don't think it was necessarily intentional. Like obviously they loved each other and everything, but that just kind of became the result of it.
Exactly. So yeah, all of that pretty much encapsulates why she's down here at the bottom. And not too many positives to really say, kind of just like, I mean, she got the win, so good
on
for
the first ever All-Star season.
Exactly.
So like,
yeah. Okay.
Alrighty.
Let's move on now to number 41, and we have
Natalie White. For those of you who know, she is the winner of Survivor Samoa, and that, she's the person that beat Russell Hands. Thing is, it's like very similar in the sense of like, kind of like in Amber's way, won over someone that was like, getting a lot of hate for their gameplay and everything. But I feel what gives Natalie White a bit more merit is, one, she was going up against Russell Hands. Granted, this was Russell's first season. No one knew like what hell he was about to reckon. But, there is like merit to that. And she's likable, she's cute. And, it's something where also, unlike the Amber and like Rob kind of like scenario, Natalie's was not like a romantic one as well. So like, it was purely like strategy, sticking with like the core, and then her being able to have a better final tribal than Mick. Mick was able to kind of like push her over the head and like, win the season.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. We have Rob and Russell's people who beat them ultimately at the bottom of our list over here. I mean, they play very similar games. Let's be honest. They are like identical players in a way. They just had a very big personality who ultimately controlled the whole game, so much so that everyone who went out of the game felt like, well, I don't want to give that person the money. at least Natalie does have what's going for her is the final tribal,
Final trouble, yeah.
where she wasn't going to win. It was going to be Mick, and she managed to make them decide to vote for her over Mick. So she at least has a little better
A little
of the
merit.
game. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
slightly better. I believe I had her in the bottom, third to last.
Third to last. Yeah, I had her. So like 7. So she was number 4, or fourth to last on my list.
Yeah, I'm pulling up my list right now because I forgot what my list is.
I mean, as long as you say yours, all I have to do is simple.
Yeah. She was ranked 40 for me.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Moving on now, we have Jenna Maraska, winner of Survivor Amazon. It is a better game, but she also kind of gets a lot of flack for being pretty passive for a lot of it. But ultimately wins some immunities near the end of the game to get her to the end. And unlike Natalie and Amber, makes it to the end against someone who isn't seen as that big player who is making all the plays. She is with a goat. So at least it's like, wow, okay, she deserved the win more so here because of who she's up against.
Yeah, and for quite some time, except for like, and for like the longest time, she was the only person to give away immunity and not get voted off.
Yeah.
Like, the only exception being like, obviously in Modern Survivor, you can give up the immunity necklace at 4 and then go play fire if that is your wish. But like, other than that, like she's the only one that has ever done it without any like idol or something as a safety net or whatnot. And to survive that little gambit. I'd say like there's that. This season, I think it's like I try not to like influence of like, oh, whoever is left, or like I'm like whoever is left, but also Rob was playing such a great game, like being able to play both sides. And I try not to let the person that doesn't make it to the end influence my winner thing as well, unless it's like a rivalry thing. Like we'll talk about one in particular in a sec, but yeah, Jenna M just she could have been she just isn't as stellar of a winner in our opinion.
Yeah, exactly. We did rank her in the exact same place. So that's fun. Yeah. 38th out of 42. So we basically were on a consensus there. But because of ranking and everything, she ends up actually taking our number 40th spot overall.
Yeah. Forget. It's I believe I know who's next.
Okay. Oh,
it is a tie.
It's a tie. So I honestly, it's good. I just double did that there.
So, but because like one is kind of based out of a bias, not gonna lie. So we have Chris Underwood. So bad.
You got this,
Chris
Ryan.
Underwood and Danny Boatwright. Now, Chris Underwood was Joe's lowest pick.
Yep.
And Danny Boatwright, big shocker, was my lowest pick.
Yeah, but interestingly enough, they also we put them both at number 34, the other one. So there was no way to break this tie. It's the only one here that we had no tiebreaker. So they actually have to share this number 38 spot together.
Which is because I've done a list like this before with ranking with someone, and like the number 1 pick was something that could not be broken because of like how the tiebreaker worked. Funny enough. So we'll talk about Chris since he's closer to the bottom of the list. He is the first person to have ever won Survivor while being voted out in the same season, which makes him a bit of a controversial winner. Because like he got voted out, so therefore, like, you know, there is that. Also, he played less days of Survivor. However, I feel like Edge gives you an edge. Because like, one, you're able to do jury management, you know, right then and there, and two, you're still technically in the game. You're just in like a purgatory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to worry about the mental game of it. You're pretty much only on the physical side of just, you know, being out there trying to survive. Which I mean, yeah, ultimately he's my bottom one because, as I said, I put some big emphasis on, is that game replicatable? Like, can you play Chris Underwood's game and take it into another season?
I wouldn't want to gamble if it's like something like Edge. Let's say, you know, like obviously you can only replay his game if it's a season with an Edge of Extinction Twist.
Yeah, well, that's where I was about to get to, was because you need an Edge of Extinction Twist in order for his game to be played the way he played it. There's very few seasons where Chris Underwood could go out there, get voted out early, and then make a catapult, you know, surge for the end. Even though his end game is good,
very good, which is why he was ranked higher on the list than me. Then, you know, like number 42, he was like 34. You said, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, for the amount of time he did actually play, he did a lot of good stuff. He played well, gave up his necklace to kind of like what I talked about with Jenna. Gave up his Netflix.
Yeah, they have Netflix out there in Fiji.
Right on Edge of Extinction, you know. He gave up his necklace to make fire, to like show like, hey, you know, I'm earning my way. And, you know, it's one of the things where if he didn't do that, he probably may not have won that season, but he did that, and it like gave a lot of people, you know, like that, like nudge to be like, yeah, he totally deserves it.
Yeah. I mean, he is a player I want to see play again, just because his win is so muddied. Like at the end of the day, I even though Amber and Natalie get to the end as kind of those goats that were following this big player, I still value that more because at least they were in a bunch of those strategic talks throughout the game to get to that point, whereas Chris Underwood only had to play, I think it was like 9 days of Survivor. Overall, like that, there's 30 more days that they had to play that side of the game as well.
I will also say another thing is, like, even like before, like for the first battle back, he was targeted like with a disadvantage, so he couldn't come back. So he was already kind of considered a threat to get back in the game. Granted, you know, Reem still had some like beef with him, but like still.
Imagine if Keith didn't target Chris Underwood, Rick Devens might not have come back into the game. Edge of Extinction could have looked very different.
Do Survivor what if?
The Keith factor.
Oh yeah. But yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next up.
Next up we got Danny Boatwright,
who this channel
is extremely underrated.
I disagree so badly.
How so?
All right. So here's how I can talk about it. Now, disclaimer, just like any of these people, we are judging them on their gameplay, not who they are as a person. So whenever I talk badly about Danny Boatwright, it's about her as a player. Just to clarify. That being said, so one, she kind of like similar to Amber and Natalie. She kind of was like, oh, like kind of use someone as like a hate shield and all that. She was kind of like in the bottom for a lot of the game. Yeah, she had one edge over Hogoboom. Forget his first name.
Yeah,
I just remember
Gary Hogaboom,
Gary.
who ultimately she is the reason that he ends up being targeted and ends up going home. Is she blows up his game knowingly too, and you gotta also remember she's one of the first players to ever come out and say that she didn't trust production. And so she was purposefully withholding information from production.
Here's the thing. That could be true. However, that's also like, here's the thing. Because I know how to rewrite a story so I don't look so bad on my part, or like when in doubt, it's an artistic choice. Mm-hmm. So there is like I take that, what she said, with a grain of salt.
Maybe. Because, I mean, like, she said that like right after the season. I think if she had that kind of feeling, she would have said it like a year or two after, like a little bit afterwards, after she had gotten a lot more hate towards her game. But she was very quick to say, like, I didn't trust production. I would tell them what they wanted to hear, or just a very basic, simple answer in order to actually execute the plan, which ultimately makes it hard to see what's going on in her gameplay, because they just don't show it, because they're like, well, she didn't give us what we really wanted, which was something crazy going on.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's hard because I promise you, and I know I told you this, you may think I'm bullshitting you. Mm-hmm. I did look at Guatemala with an open mind. On my second rewatch and everything, I looked at it, and like, I was looking out for, Danny to like see the little pieces and stuff, but it just wasn't there for me. She won 2 immunity challenges, which I can give her that. Well, I mean, I don't have to give her shit, but those are facts. That is facts. She did win 2 challenges.
Yeah, against Stephanie LaGrossa, who's supposed to be really good at challenges, but never could win team challenges.
Fair. She is an athlete by nature, so people like automatically assume, oh, good at challenges. Yeah. But I think it was because Stephanie's game was superior to Danny's, and it was a vengeful jury thing. Mm-hmm. That's part of the reason why, like, I just put her down. Like, this too. Like, I was honestly giving Guatemala a decent chance when I was rewatching it and everything. Mm-hmm. I'm like, this is not a bad season. And then hold up, finale happens and she wins, and then I'm like, no.
Yeah, I feel like one thing that really makes you not like Danny is that you think Stephanie is like a really great player.
I don't think she's a really great player. I have like admiration for her. There is a difference. Not admiration as like, oh, she's a survivor crush or anything, but she is someone that, I rooted for a lot. And like when she came back for Guatemala, I was like excited and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
There is that thing. There's also like, I have to admit, when Winners at War came out, and some of you know this, I have mentioned this story before, when they announced the list and they said Danny Boatwright, I had to look up what season she won. I had to, like, I was like, wait, what? And then I realized, oh, she won Guatemala. I'm like, oh, so this is the person. Which, for me, it was like, she was just never really someone that was memorable.
The reason why she's not memorable, a lot comes from the fact that Guatemala, they forgot about Guatemala in the All-Stars and all the productions like afterwards. Danny Boatwright is the first person from Guatemala to be a 2-time player. It took all the way till season 40 for them to actually bring someone back. And honestly, they have some great players that would be great to bring back. It's
Judd
just very
Sargent.
unfortunate. Yeah, like Judd, Rafe would
Rafe
be
is like
good.
the number one person that should come back.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, like they have people. Like it's not like the season is completely void of
no,
characters or
it's
anything.
not a bad season. It's just like the whole Game of Thrones thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, all of this, like I'm saying, she's underrated. Like
I feel like she's overrated.
let me say, ultimately, I have her still here at 34, like in my ranking. So at the end of the day, she's not crazy high on in my eyes either. I just think that she's better than some of these people who I don't think they could have played their games in that similar kind of way. Obviously, I think an older Danny Boatwright was way less equipped, honestly, to handle Survivor going into Winners at War. If she was, say, she was out there for Micronesia, just like a couple years later, I think she would have been in a lot better position to play her game again in a similar way. But yeah, so ultimately, yeah, I think where she was for Guatemala, I think she could play that game and make it either far or win the game again if it was around that same time period. Compared to like a Chris Underwood, who you cannot be replicated, compared to Natalie White's and Amber, who you're looking for a lot more very specific scenarios. I think Danny can be there in more scenarios than those other ones.
That's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
And we could dedicate a whole episode.
Yeah. I know that when we talk about Danny Boatwright, that's going to be our biggest conversation topic.
For those of you who have never watched our Brant Steels, I almost jumped out a window because she almost won the Brant Steel.
She was this close. She no joke. If she won that fire making challenge, she was winning. She was winning All Stars 4.
Like, watch All Stars 4. You'll see. I opened up my bedroom window right there, and it was like, I'm not messing around. I'll freaking do. Thankfully, it didn't come to that, but
yeah.
Maybe one day I'll come to appreciate Danny Boatwright.
Yeah,
but that day is not today.
It is not today. But let's move on here. If you want to announce the next person here.
All right. Next up, we have Sandra Diaz Twine, Twine.
Twine, yeah.
I was like, wait. But it is her Pearl Islands win. Now, where did you place her? I know.
I placed this win 39 out of 42.
So I put it at like number 7. All right. Part of the thing is
no, you didn't put it at number 7. That's to indicate
no 7 from the bottom.
Yeah, I got it.
Sorry. My math is right. My my delivery of the information is just terrible.
Yes, it was just very unfortunate that the 7 was also the season of Pearl Islands.
Yeah. So, what can I say? It's more so of like, all right, Pearl Islands is one of the best seasons. A lot of people, have it as S tier and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good season. Like, it has a great like twist where no one saw that before. It was like, oh, someone's coming back in the game and stuff. Mm-hmm. Also, like, granted, like, in hindsight, like, not having any of your equipment and pretty much going out there and your production day or like your promotional pick day outfits and stuff, mm-hmm. getting blindsided that way, and it led to like some troubles for a lot of people on there. That, and there was a lot of like great characters on there, Rupert, and mm-hmm. we all know Johnny Fairplay. Yeah. Sandra was one where she was very vocal. One of I'd say probably one of my favorite Sandra moments was, I can get loud too. Yeah. She was funny on that season. Mm-hmm. But like, I think part of it was that out of the two that were left, her and Lillian, she was like the better out of the two in the sense of like Lillian, kind of like what I was talking about earlier with Mike. She played as a Boy Scout, leader troop leader. And it's like one of the things where if you're going to play like a loyal game or like something like that, you have to stick to it. Otherwise, everyone's going to bring it up and everyone is going to judge you for
Exactly. Yeah,
And so,
I have heard that Lil has said, like after it, that she really regretted that they gave her the Scouts uniform at the start of the season because it kind of gave her like a very unwinnable odds of being taken seriously, especially in an endgame scenario.
Yeah, she even said that during Final Travel Council too, like briefly. But like, it's something where Sandra, she was like determined. She did throw someone, her closest ally, under the bus just so she can survive one more time, and then kind of wait for the majority alliance to kind of like cannibalize each other. So there is like a merit and strategy to what she did. However, it wasn't like it's not one of our favorites.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, another person who there's just a lot of bigger players surrounding her, and she's one of the ones who manages to kind of survive all of these big characters fighting each other and ends up being at the end against someone who just didn't get the respect of everyone on the jury, and so kind of ends up finding the right scenario. The right people went out at the right time for her, but I don't know if it was totally on her like ability of playing the game. It was more just like, well, these people have to get out because they're just playing a good game.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, next up we have Fabio from Survivor Nicaragua, coming in here at 14 points. And yeah, Fabio is perceived by pretty much the whole cast as a complete idiot. And he says to the camera that he's trying to like act that up and everything. But it doesn't really feel like that.
I mean, like sometimes you do play up your biggest things because believe it or not, Ryan has been on reality TV. Well, a reality podcast. It was like for a dating thing. but like sometimes you do play up like a trait a bit more. He definitely did that. Plus he was young and stuff, and he was like, all right, well, I don't want anyone to think I'm a threat, so let me do the thing and just be like a goof the entire time. Funny enough, Fabio was my first ever winner pick.
Good job, Ryan. Good job.
Here's the thing. Back then, I had longer hair, and I was like, "Oh yeah, Fabio, like he looks cool." Well, first his name was Judd. I was like, "Oh yeah, he has long hair. He seems like a cool dude. Like, yeah." So I'm gonna root for him, and then he ended up winning. Sorry, like hindsight and all that stuff.
It's one of these tough things though, because Nicaragua, I have gone on the record saying that I think it's one of the worst seasons in Survivor history. I just don't think it's that great of a season. So first off, I don't think his competition was very strong. He played a game where he kind of was on the bottom. Like he ends up having to win those last few immunity challenges in order to get to the end for the win. But yeah, it was just like if we saw like more of I'll make a more recent comparison, like Xander, for instance, was perceived by the cast as dumb, but we get a lot of him then very analytically like breaking things down. Like you can tell the gears are turning, even though everyone thinks he's like the stoner guy because he's talking about butterflies and dead relatives and all that kind of stuff. But with Fabio, you never got that. You got him at the beginning say, I'm going to play up being dumb. And then you just see him being dumb all season. And then he ends up winning the season. So, yeah. But, I do give him some credit for at least being able to win those immunity challenges to get to the end. But yeah, where was I had him at 37 out of 42.
So you had him at 6. That might, or 6 from the bottom. I had him at 8 at the bottom.
Yeah.
From the bottom.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
moving on then. Do you have anything else to talk about, Fabio?
Not really.
Okay.
That was a little bit of information that I didn't ever tell you. But it was like, oh yeah, just since we were talking about him, thought I'd bring it up.
Nice. Okay. Here is the next one. Want to take it away?
At 35, we have Ben Drybergen. Now, here's why he's low on my list. He is, yes, a controversial winner, mostly because like it did seem like production was trying to save his ass. However, because of that, he is a likable guy and everything like that. But I think what really made him lower on my list more than anything was the fact that the final 3 was a very strong final 3. At least in my opinion, he was the weakest of the 3. I'd say that I feel like, yes, he's a very likable guy and like he's a veteran, all this stuff. And like, there is merit to like, going out and fighting idols and stuff and not giving up and all that stuff. However, I feel both Chrissy and Ryan, and ask me on the day, I'll tell you which one I would have preferred, played better games in my opinion. I'd say Ben did play the hero game, doing it from the bottom, and that also gives his game merits.
Yeah.
But for me, it wasn't as. It was like the options that were there.
Yeah.
And it, like I feel like he wasn't the best out of the 3.
Yeah. Ultimately, what gets him the win is because his end game. On paper and like by the jury reactions and his I think Ben, when I think of Ben, he is the first winner to win because he played up the tribal council moments. He gave the jury these big exciting Ben bombs and all these idol plays that end up being successful where he's like the only one to vote for someone. So the fact that the final 7 onwards becomes the Ben show according to the jury, it creates a scenario where even though Ryan and Chrissy played games good up till final 7, the jury sees as the last like 6 to 8 days or whatever
and it's more flashy.
It's Ben's game to lose at that point because everyone likes him on the jury. It's like in 42, every time that anyone made a big play that made the jury go, oh my gosh, they had to go out right away because they were the biggest threats. And Ben did that at final 7. He has to go home then, but he ends up finding idols. Admittedly, final 5 idol is very questionable if he actually found it. And obviously fire making is, controversial as it was new. The reason I don't knock him as much as like a Chris Underwood winning is that is now a staple of the game, or his edge is not. It's something that might happen, but you never really know if they're going to do it again.
Yeah, I agree. One thing I also have to like, just by talking about this, it made me question, could Ben be the reason that idol nullifiers exist? Because if you think about it, 35 and 36 were filmed back to back. So like it is possible with Ben like winning that much, someone maybe around the 36 mark or like when they were in pre-production of 37 was like, bro, what if we had like a nullifier for it?
Yeah,
that's just a little like theory I just came up with right now.
Yeah, that's a good theory because Christian Hubicki actually said 37's cast were super afraid of someone going on an idol run of just playing idols to get to the end. That was actually like a very big fear of that season because they had just seen Ben's win. Like that was like the last thing they had seen. So I think there's a lot of validity in that.
All right, well. If I'm thinking like Christian Hibicki, means some smart cookie.
Exactly. Nice, that rhymed.
I didn't even mean it to run that time. So
Yeah.
more points.
Nice. Okay, next up we have the winner from Survivor Panama, Aris Voskakis, however you say that last name. Yeah, I mean, he's
The family are very creative with their names.
Yeah. Aris is someone who wasn't necessarily the best player on the season. There were definitely people better than him. I'd say, Suri and Terry were the big, clear favorites of like who could win the game if they got to the end. And both of them probably would have been like some of the most iconic winners. They would probably be at the top tier here. But ultimately, Aris does get rid of them at the end here, and I do think he's the right decision over Danielle. Like I do think Aris was at least he was some part of the strategy with Suri. Like he definitely was talking with her for a lot of the strategy of Panama. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I think he's an okay winner, but he by no means is great and by no means is terrible.
Yeah, I agree. Why kind of like, because I put him a little bit higher than your list, like at least if memory serves me right.
Yeah, I have it at 35.
35, so that would be
right below Danny Boatwright.
So that would be 8 points. So like I came up with the 14 from the bottom. So like one thing that I gave him as well is that one out of the two choices, he was the better of, better than Danielle. And then also, and I mentioned this earlier with someone, but like I said, we get to it in a second, but like his story about him and Terry, like this like rivalry that was going on the entire time. And then how like, at the end, like he was able to have one up on Terry and everything. It is like a, I don't want to say David and Goliath, but it is like a thing of like, that was like his big arc in this thing is beating Terry because Terry being, a dominant winner in challenges so much so it's like, like like Terry's impressive. And that's part of the reason why he's like, a favorite of that season. In a season of like, when you have like Suri in that same season, Shane Powers and, stuff like that, like, he's a big standout in that season. So, like I kind of give him points for beating his foe in that regard.
Yeah. Interesting though, he doesn't win that. He doesn't win the final immunity. It's the captain of sports, Danielle, who ends up winning the final immunity. But it was just at this point where it's like, of course you're going to take out Terry. Like if she wanted any chance to even have a chance of winning, you have to take out Terry.
Would have been the first sweep win. Like he would have he would have stolen that title away from Earl, that of being the first unanimous winner.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know even if he got any votes cast against him besides that last vote at the end. Because if he didn't, potentially a real perfect win could have happened here. So, I don't remember what the vote count was against him. If he got anything previously to that.
Well, I think because pre-merge they needed Terry, and then when it came to the merge, he just kept winning everything.
Yeah.
So. And then also he had the broken
super idol.
The broken super idol, which meant like, you try and get rid of him, good luck, because someone else is just going to go home instead, which is why they, made amendments to that idol, because like hard to keep that kind of thing around when 2 seasons in a row, the person makes it to the finale who holds that.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Okay, that is RS. Let's move on now here to the winner of South Pacific.
We have Sophie Clark. Sophie is a smart player and everything. I would say because of Coach, where it was more so of like a loyalty game and also kind of a culty game. Well, not cult. like religious, and it was like very, very like the forefront of like unity and stuff. She was kind of like on the back burner, and like after rewatching and stuff, because like obviously I like remember Sophie and everything. She was a rather young winner as well.
Yeah.
But like she was like making moves and she was like being strategic. It's just one, because she was partnered up with a returning player and a fan favorite one of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, it being a dominant season, and there was a lot of big people from South Pacific. Cochran, you have Ozzy, you have Dawn, even though like,
Yeah.
but like, you have that, you have Coach.
You got
And
Brandon Hance.
yeah, so it's like hard to kind of stand out in a season where you have a lot of flashier people, or like that have like big story things that kind of happen.
Yeah.
So I don't like, I don't blame her for not getting as much screen time as she probably would have, but there was just like so much kind of like going on where that kind of happened.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think what gets her the win is the fact that she does get to the end with someone who doesn't own their game in a very good way. And that basically Sophie counted on that happening with Coach. Like she basically said, I got to the end with him because I know that he's going to take all these heat from everything. And he ultimately does, and doesn't admit that, yeah, I played this game, in this way. He tries to be like, no, I played it honorably. I played it like a warrior, which ultimately, is not what the jury wanted to hear. Yeah, it was so ultimately, yeah, Sophie gets to the end by ultimately, I think a lot of people would discount her as well before Winners at War, especially. But now, after watching Winners at War and then going back to her game, you can see a lot more things that she did purposefully that I think at first you kind of could discount.
Yeah, and I feel like she and another person, because of Winners at War, after watching it, it retroactively makes their games better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Sophie is still like, she's the highest ranked out of the bottom 10, but it's just merely because of her gameplay and that, and like how she was presented. She is a smart player.
Yeah, I had her 29 out of 42, by the way.
Then all right, math. So I had her not too far away from that.
Yeah, I know. I wish I had both of them.
If it was 29, that would have been 13 points. So I would have had her at like maybe 30 or 31.
You had her at 32.
32. Fuck.
Yes.
Math.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to try. I have both of them now on my phone. I'm just going to have to go scrolling back and forth to find them.
Maybe I'm using my phone to do this. So
exactly. Yeah, I forgot to put it up on a different monitor. So
no, that's good.
Yeah, we're going, making it good work. Okay, let's now talk about the other Sandra Diaz Twine when the heroes versus villains one, which is a very similar game to her Pearl Islands game, but this does have a pretty big significant boost in the fact it's the most iconic casts that Survivor has ever had. A lot of great players on it. So by just nature of that, I feel like it had to be ranked as a higher win than her Pearl Islands win.
Yeah. Even like just because it's an all-star season, it has to be. It was also the 10th, anniversary season as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then also winning over not only just Russell Hantz, who dominated that, season,
mm-hmm.
like, or at least very much so when it was focused on the villains and the merge and everything. But also doing it over against like Parvati and all these like legends and stuff. The fact that she was able to do it again, the same kind of like way.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, I would say she had a few like extra moments here. Where she was kind of ish on the bottom, not necessarily like, because obviously Russell was targeting all the heroes at the merge and everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Sandra was like, well, I don't really want to be a part of that. But you know, like that just wasn't Russell's like main objective at the time.
Yeah.
And
I think
then-
her separating herself from the villains ends up giving her all those hero votes, because then it's like she became an honorary hero of the season, despite that
Yeah.
she's a villain. Like she took that name because like everyone, like Russell and her were so at odds against each other, and clearly Sandra wanted to get Russell out for so long, and that to me that is a big hindrance of this game, is that she did not want to get to the end with Russell. She wanted to take him out for almost the whole game. So if you look at it in the strategic side, she doesn't have that great of a mind for the game. Both of her wins was kind of like, wow, everything kind of ends up working out in a good way for her, but it never felt like she's the one that controlled it and created it to become the way it ended up being.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I had her ranked at 33 out of 42, and you had her ranked 28 out of 42.
Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, there is a thing where when you're in an all-star season, will probably give your win a bit more of a boost as a result. That's why Amber wasn't dead last place.
Yeah.
Also, Ryan's little vendetta against Miss Boat, right? But you know, like that, you know, like there is like I said, there's merit to an all-star season, especially when it's like one of the most iconic seasons of Survivor.
Exactly.
It's just it wasn't as a great of a win as other winners.
It's interesting. Both of her wins are on like great casts, but she's never been considered one of the great players of the cast. She ends up just being known as the winner of the season.
Well, I mean, first person to do it twice. So there is like, obviously there is some like merit to her gameplay.
Yeah, it felt like though she became a big deal after Heroes versus Villains, but it never felt like she was a big deal during or before. Like it was always like, oh, now she's the 2-time winner. But you know, going into it, like people forgot who she was. She, like in the way that you forgot who Danny Boatwright was going into Winners at War, people forgot who Sandra Diaz Twine was going into Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah, honestly, when I forget with my Survivor rewatch if I did rewatch or like or when I was catching up on everything, all the seasons I did miss. I was kind of like looking at like Danielle, or like I was looking at Danielle, like, did Danielle ever come back? And I was like, oh wait, she was on Heroes versus Villains. She anywho. I mean, when there's a big all-star season, you're bound to forget one or someone.
Right.
Who was it in other Sierra in Game Changers? I had to like
Sierra Dawn Thomas, who is married to Joe Ingram now.
Yeah. I had to like look her up again.
Yeah,
like,
if we see a couple's Survivor, you can guarantee yourself that they're going to be on it, and somehow Sierra will be a 3-time Survivor player.
Yeah, I mean, not gonna lie, during Game Changers, I was concerned she might actually win. At some point.
Yeah,
because like so many like great players were going out and stuff. I'm like, could have been her.
Yeah.
Thankfully she didn't, and we'll get to Game Changers very much later. But next up, we do have one of my faves. If you know this channel, you know I love Bill Nye the Science Guy, Bob Crowley. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about Bob. I understand why like he's not as a popular winner, because it wasn't a challenge heavy season, but he was like one of the dominant like challenge players on there. He was also like a leader, and he also, you know, like I feel like there's a lot to like his game that kind of like boosts him. And like, you know, also being the oldest Survivor winner also kind of like gives him a little street cred as well. Also, I like Bob. Bob's just like a nice guy.
Yeah, it's one of those things though with Bob. I've gone saying I think Gabon is one of the least strategic seasons of Survivor that we have seen, and because I put myself in this, like I'm trying to look at them through games and could Bob play his game the next year with a new set of casts, and it be as successful as it was in Gabon? Is very hard for me to ever see that happen. Sure he wins immunities, but like it's one of the weakest casts we've seen of Survivor, like ever, pretty much. So I don't really see him winning those challenges. I think that ultimately there would be someone who would be a better strategic force that can get to the end in most seasons, that would actually be viewed as that could beat him. Like he almost gets beaten by Susie Smith.
Which I'll admit that would have been if she won, because like when I watched this, I knew nothing about the season other than like Randy and Sugar were in it.
Uh-huh.
If she won that season, she would have been ranked lower than Danny Boatwright.
Yeah.
And that's saying something. But like,
yeah, I mean, she was knockoff Sandra Diaz Twine in my books. She had very little game. She was discount store Sandra.
And for me, like she was just kind of there, and I feel like part of the thing is like her team just kept winning immunity.
Yeah.
And then when she got to the merge, she wasn't really considered a threat. And yeah, she had like an immunity win under her belt that kind of like, helped her plead her case and everything.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and I will say this about Bob, and he's, one of my favorite underrated winners. So there is like, so this I mean this when I say it. I love Bob. However, part of his win also kind of comes from, the other two not being as great as him.
Yeah.
Like there was Sugar, who was, despite the name, a little bitter to a lot of peeps on there. And then you have like we said, Susan, who wasn't as like memorable. Like honestly forgot her placement when I was rewatching. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
And
she just keeps somehow not getting voted out. Just never like she's brought to the end as a goat that ends up almost winning.
Yeah. That would have been shocking.
Yeah.
But I still like Bob. I still think, there is merit to his game, but I will acknowledge, like in another season, he may not have won.
Yeah. You have him ranked 24 out of 42, and I have him ranked 36 out of 42.
Damn.
So yeah, there's a pretty big difference there.
Yeah, like 12 difference.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, that's Bob Crowley. Let's now move on to the next one. One of the first winners in Survivor history, the first woman winner of Survivor, Tina Wesson, who ultimately, I'm saying ultimately so much here. We've got to have like an ultimately counter now for me. I've probably said like 6-8 times this video. Yeah.
Phrases we love to say, or like words we love to say.
Exactly. So yeah, Tina doesn't get a lot of screen. She's the first winner that really doesn't get edited too much early on. It's like she gets a build near the end of the season. And is up against Colby Donaldson, who production loved him, so they gave him a lot of screen time. He won. He set the record for immunity challenges, so quickly out there.
And it's only been tied with, never broken. And we're talking 20 years worth of Survivor.
Yeah.
40 seasons later, still only people can tie with it. Then again, getting to 5 is such a hard thing to do. Like,
exactly.
I would say one thing about, because I like Tina a lot. I'd say the one thing that kind of was like smart on her side was she was never really part of any of the big dramas that kind of came about. and this was a season where a lot of people came back from the season. This is like, I'd say, out of all the old school ones, this is the one that they always like pulled from, because it's like, a really solid cast. I would say, like, part of the reason she is lower on the list is, one, because of her edit. And yes, being away from the drama is smart. However, it doesn't always warrant, like, the best kind of like win, because like getting through the drama and still winning is a lot more entertaining.
Yeah.
And then also losing to Colby, who had like a stronger case at the end, like, or beating him, like,
the big fan favorite, I'd say, was Colby. As at least from production, like what they were going to give us, made it lean towards more towards Colby. But Tina, you gotta remember, almost wins Blood versus Water. She gets fourth place. If she gets the end, even against Tyson, I think there's a good chance she wins that. Yeah. So, so when I'm looking at my kind of like, could they repeat it? Sure, she goes out first in an All-Stars, but
that's because she had a winner target on her back.
That season was like all winners had no chance. Blood versus Water was not like that. So even though she gets voted out, but she ends up being able to still come back in. It's even her vote out is near the end of the season, so it's like whatever, it's not a big deal that she kind of gets taken out right around there anyways. But yeah, she's definitely still a good player, definitely a good social player. I think a lot of people who end up going out there tend to like Tina and want to work with her to some degree. Don't know if it's always like, I want to get to the end with Tina, but it's like, I want to make it at least mid-merge with Tina at the very least.
That's fair. Sure. She should have been on Winners at War. Like, I'm actually like surprised that she wasn't.
Ethan was the earliest winner they ended up going with. So
which I felt like he was kind of due, but like, Tina, you have such a small pool of female winners.
And
you choose Danny, but
but Danny Boatwright at least hadn't played again. I was interested with all the players who had only played once as a winner, because there's so much talk about like Yule, especially like how would he do playing the game again. I don't know.
I mean, like, we'll get to Yule way later, but like, there is merit for him being the last like old school Survivor player, without barring obviously Tyson, because he came back, but like the last one standing in a season where they were like, oh no, it's not on purpose that we're trying to get rid of all the old school players. Little Catherine Hahn, Agatha Hart.
Even though I'm pretty sure that they said in the season like that they wanted to make sure that the new school players weren't being targeted.
Well, they kind of took that to the extreme, didn't they? But I liked Tina. She was like one of the first people I brought for France Steels.
Exactly.
Way back when.
Okay, let's move on now to a very modern winner.
We have Erica. I'm gonna fuck up her name.
Kasupinen.
Thank you. Now, she was a winner pick of mine, so like, well, not winner pick. She was on my draft of like team people. So she gets a little bit extra points there. Not when I was ranking this, but like in my heart. She's someone where she was definitely a sleeper threat. And it's kind of like a similar thing with Michelle Fitzgerald, where it's like, because she was on a team that was like constantly winning, we didn't get as much content from her. So like, and then also we didn't really get to see any of the strategy take place prior to that, because like it was all like, oh, maybe this. That being said, she was targeted pretty early on. And she was even being targeted during the Furge or Mergatory part. And she is a controversial winner because of the whole hourglass twist. Which, very understandably so. So like, I feel like there is a balance. However, it was like going through this game and watching like the, alliance kind of blow up against itself, like the major alliance in that season.
Mhm.
And then, being smart. And then like, I remember when it happened too, where I'm like, oh, Erica's actually a very dangerous player and like very, very much a sleeper threat. So yeah, and especially in a season like that was so crazy with twists and everything and like advantages and stuff.
Mhm.
I feel like it gives a little bit of merit to her win because like surviving all that crap.
Yeah, exactly. I will say, first off, I forgot to give the rankings for what we personally did for Tina Wesson. I had her at 26. Had her at 33. So let me just kind of throw that out there real quick. And same with Erica. I had her at 28. You had her at 30. So yeah. Yeah, she was someone. It's interesting because I think if Lulu loses immunity, she's going home in most scenarios in the game. And I think she goes home pre-merge very often if she's on a losing tribe. So it's interesting because it's like we get to see a what if scenario of a pre-merge person going out, making that miracle run towards the end, because in a lot of worlds they would have gone home, but because they managed to get through that pre-merge, they're then able to actually play the game that everyone is always afraid of these kind of players, that and why they're taking them out pre-merge. And yeah, she ultimately another ultimately there for you guys if you're still keeping track. I'm just gonna start. I honestly at this point I'm just gonna say it for every single one now, just so some YouTube commenter can be raging.
A lot of people, especially my roommates, they're like, "You say anywho a lot," and I'm like, "Fair, I won't argue with that."
Yeah, exactly.
Anywho,
Yeah, so yeah, she's definitely I think plays a good game in Survivor 41, just is plagued by terrible edits of the season, along with these twists that ultimately get her to the end game, even though I think in if the hourglass wasn't there, she's the one that's going home. Like they were very clear that she's the one who would have been the Verge elimination.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, like, she did make it through. She, like, she's someone where maybe if they do like another returning player season and she's down for it, she comes back and see how that kind of plays out. But the fact is, like, she was able to navigate that crazy season.
And good on her too, because after the season she's now got a job with ET Canada breaking down Survivor. So
it's funny, I recently saw on Instagram, her, Marianne, and I believe Zach was there too. They were like all chilling, and a few more Survivor peeps. But like, life has been pretty good for Erica since then.
Exactly. So yeah, that's Erica. Let's move on now to number 28 here. And we got the Sepia Towery, who I think she plays a pretty underrated game of Survivor. I think a lot of people forget about Survivor Marquesas because it's not one of the first 3 seasons of Survivor, but it's also not near kind of like that big era of Amazon, Pro Islands, All Stars, where there's all these big characters. It's in this area with Marquesas and Thailand, who those are 2 kind of more forgotten early old school seasons.
Yeah, I feel like obviously I would say like the biggest draw away from Marquesas is, I would say 2 things actually. But one is like, the first rock draw, which was like very early on, and that's like a small little detail. That's like that's the first time I heard about Marquesas. And the second one, obviously, being it's the season that introduced us to Boston Rob. So like he's like the big takeaway from that. So like there's in itself, it is a decent season to watch. It's just like like in the old school grand scheme of things, it's something that isn't as I would say as memorable as other seasons, but it is worth a watch, definitely. And Vesepia, she was someone where she was a sleeper threat. She was someone that was on the bottom, and it kind of took like people, like the Majority Alliance cannibalizing itself to be like, okay, now she can kind of play her game. The thing is, like, the downfall of is it Nalil or
Nalia?
Nalia, was because, like, when you do that, not just like a bitter jury or something, but it's also like, like, oh, okay, well, you did this to us. And Vesepia played like a very cool, calm, collective game throughout, even on her original tribe, when she was originally on a losing tribe and everything. She was able to like keep her cool throughout it, and especially in a stressful place like this, like, props to her.
She also is one of the first survivors that I can recall that used their luxury item in a strategic way and didn't just get something that's just like kind of nice. Like, she got a pen and paper and wrote down notes about every single person in the game, which ultimately gets her that question. There's like that immunity kind of question that comes up where she knows everyone so well because of her taking notes. She ends up winning the immunity, and I think it was a very crucial immunity, potentially could have sent her home. I don't know of too many luxury items that do come into play like that.
Well, for a straight up challenge, no. It's interesting. She's another one where apparently she wasn't even called for Winners at War, which was kind of like, are you
crazy?
Kidding? Yeah, especially since, one of those old school seasons, she's like, regardless, even if she may seem like a forgettable winner, she still is a very iconic winner in the sense of, like, one, first Black person to win, Survivor, and two, being from Marquesas, the same season Boston Rob was from, it's still like, I don't know. And especially since she's like one of those underrated winners where it's like, like, why hasn't she ever been back? I don't know if it's a personal thing or they've asked her before and then she was like, no. But like,
I think I saw something where Jeff Probst like was really like down on Vesepia, like did not think that she was deserving of a win or something like that. Like a while ago, I think he had said something like that. So I don't know why that would be the case.
because everyone has their like.
I mean, I like that they brought some of those, like one-time players for Winners at War. Like those were the people I was most excited to see, were the people who had only played one time, because we only had seen them in a good light, whereas some of the other people who did play multiple times, we at least got to see their failure first at some points.
We'll get to one person in particular later on, but like, no, that was one of the highlights of Winners at War, is like everyone here has obviously achieved what so many few people have been able to do with this game. So like seeing them all duke it out was like part of the big appeal of it.
Exactly. Okay. Next up. Let me do this. Oh, that is Michelle Fitzgerald.
That is. Oh, damn. I was supposed to introduce that. Which, this was like a three-way tie.
Exactly. I think you had her ranked 26, and then I had her ranked. I don't know. I don't not have it up right
think it was
now.
in 30s.
Yeah, it was. I had her ranked 32. But because you had her ranked 26, and Sepia and Erica was not ranked 26 or higher, Michelle takes the number 27 spot here.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Like, obviously, when I first watched that season,
Mhm.
you know, like kind of like similar to Erica, where it was like she was always on a winning team, so that's why, you know, we never saw her like strategy or anything,
Mhm.
or at the very least see her play from the bottom. And then you know, when it came to the end game and stuff, she was like really, really good. Especially once all the big like showy guys were, you know, outplaying each other and all that.
Mhm.
Michelle was like, yeah, I'm here to play. And not only that, she beat two very formidable, you know, like people as well, Ty and Aubrey, who are
Yeah.
both like, you know, really good players.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why she is a controversial winner is that.
Mhm.
But, you know, like we talked about with Sophie, her game retroactively got better because like we saw how good of a player she is with you know, winners at war. And
Yeah.
like, yeah, she was playing from the bottom, but they even admit they didn't want to play with her because they were low-key kind of scared of her in that resort.
Mhm.
Resort? Resolve?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. One of those words.
that's why I'm learning Japanese. I've failed at English. Uh yeah,
Yeah, she is yeah, definitely a better player than I think she got a lot of credit for after Ko-Rong, because everyone was just saying that Aubrey was you know, this great player. Ty got a lot of screen time, so it almost seemed like it was going to be Aubrey winning, Ty getting seconds, and Michelle being the 0 vote finalist. I think a lot of people would have thought going into that final tribal that that's what would have happened. But yeah, Michelle, she actually wins some of those immunities against like Sydney Gillian, who was very athletic, like could
yeah.
have won those challenges very easily. So, you know, definitely got to have some kudos to her that she's, you know, it doesn't seem like she's that physical. Like, you know, she doesn't you scream like I'm gonna win challenges, and
Yeah,
yet she's winning challenges.
she was on the beauty tribe, and
Yeah,
like, you know, I think it's a little unfair to just assume, oh, they're just pretty.
yeah,
But no, like she was more than that. Which was an I feel like a great thing. That season did in general was like there's different types of like strength, beauty, and wisdom.
Mhm.
Uh and like even talking about Ty, where it was like, you know, oh, liking pretty things and inner beauty as well. Um, you know, things like that. And the fact that Michelle was like, yeah, I'm a pretty face, but I also kick ass.
Yeah,
You know, that was also pretty cool as well.
yeah, nice. Yeah, that's pretty much Michelle's game right there. Let's move on now to the winner of Survivor Thailand. We got Brian Heideck, who I know you ranked pretty low on your
Very well.
list. Then me going from the idea of I'm ranking people based off of gameplay. He, in my opinion, in those first 8 seasons of Survivor, was the best winner in terms of how he played the game of complete domination and complete control. Was it boring? Yes. Not a good season of Survivor. But he is someone who had a very clear game plan from the start, executed it very well, and was a complete villain in confessionals, but then you know, was more endearing to the tribe than what we would then see in confessionals, which made him be able to play this aggressive game, but somehow didn't have complete bitterness at the end when you compare him to like a Russell Hantz or a Boston Rob in All Stars. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a very, I think it's one of the more dominant controlling games. But yeah, let's hear what you have to say about his game.
No, I think you were very right about that. Early Survivor, he did play the best game.
Mhm.
Well, I feel dominant game. I won't say best game.
Yeah.
Dominant game.
Yeah.
I will say the way he went about it, and that season just not being a great season in general and stuff, and the fact that like because of how he played it and everything, Jeff Probst's like, nah, we're not bringing this guy back ever.
Yeah, I mean, he shouldn't come back.
Yeah.
I do think if he came back a year later after Thailand and they hadn't seen, they hadn't done their research afterwards into him, I think he could have played another pretty dominant game if he came back for, say, All Stars.
Well, define doing your homework, because
some of the like controversial stuff that kind of was in his past that they didn't background check, I think.
I mean, when you mean replicate their game, do you mean like them doing it, or like someone playing exactly like that in a similar, or like in a different season, or that exact same person doing the exact same thing in a all-star season?
Yeah, I mean, just whichever way you want to take it, just you put them into another season. I'm just using All-Star because at this point we had seen him in Thailand.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, if they did do an All-Star season, if also they just said he wasn't in Thailand, now suddenly he is in Amazon, I think he could still play that kind of game in a very aggressive way, yet everyone liked him at the end. Like they still, like, somehow, despite all of his terrible like attributes, like it didn't rub that way on like the tribe. It just rubbed that way because of what he was doing in confessionals. Let's see. I had him ranked. Let's see. Oh, you had him at 37.
I think part of it was principle as well as the way he went about it. So I feel principle did, but I do agree he did play a very dominant game.
Yeah, because I had him ranked at 18 out of 42. So
over the halfway mark. So he's the one that got downgraded the most.
Yeah, he took a pretty big hit. Yeah.
No. All right. So
okay,
next up, we got Ethan Zahn, going from one of the most hated winners to one where, especially way back in the day, very likable winner.
Mm-hmm.
He was someone who he was like a hero throughout it. Like, he was a good role model for people, and he was like a nice guy to be around. His social game was decent. He was able to survive a tribe swap and everything back when that was like the first time it happened.
Yeah.
Which, like, especially when you're being thrown into that, and also being in like one of the toughest like terrains that they've ever been on. I think there's definitely merit to his win. I'd say like old school Survivor was where he flourished.
Yeah.
Winners at War is a totally different thing. I feel like if the numbers were different, or like if they didn't target old school players first, possibly things could have been different. But yeah, the man is inspiring. Like, and this is before, like, obviously, he went through cancer famously, and like was able to recover and everything. But like he was someone where before that, like, he was like a young soccer player that people could look up to. It was very likable, and his social game really, really helped him out and gave him the win, basically. Yeah,
and he was part of one of the first real dominant alliances with him, Lex, and Big Tom, where they pretty much dominate the game. He ends up being the only one out of those three to make it to the end, which is definitely a big credit. Like, he ends up getting to get the credit at the end for all of the stuff that the three of them were doing. So, it's not as dominant as some of the other winners, especially we're going to get where it seemed like they were really in control and they were the one deciding a lot of things. Ethan, even though was in this power position, it really was a three-way effort to maintain power through the game.
Yeah, agreed. Where did we have him?
Let's see. So I had him. Where is he? I do not see. I had him at 25 out of 42.
All right, so that's. Did we both put him at 25?
You put him at 27.
All right, so roughly the same spot, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So, he ends up here at 25. Not a terrible placement here.
No,
Like honestly, like there are a lot of great winners. Like we're talking about some of the negatives on some of these people here, but like there's a lot of
there's a lot of merit to their wins.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're just having to talk about the bad stuff because eventually we're just going to be talking about good stuff, especially I think like 20 onwards. It just feels like.
Yeah.
Okay, next up. We got Mike Holloway.
Good old Mike Holloway.
Yeah, winner of Worlds Apart. And the first player to ever win out in Survivor, where he had to, from Final 7 onwards, he had to pretty much win immunity or play idols to get to the end.
Yeah. He is someone where I like Mike. Especially like, he was a fun character. Like he did kind of blow up his game a little bit, but he was able to recover. Because like in the earlier part, like the pre-merge and stuff, he was, his social game was pretty good and everything. The thing is, like, his downfall was the loved ones thing. And then that just put a huge target on his back where he had to, like, play such a dominant physical game.
Exactly.
But like, because he was able to do that, and it's different than let's say Ben, where like, winning a challenge, stuff like that, and hulking out and like doing the best you can. He played the best game that he possibly could. And I feel like he was pretty likable and sociable, where like, despite doing that move and also earning his way to the end, was able to land him that win.
Yeah, I put him pretty low on my list because of how he won. Was you're never wanting to go on Survivor and say, hey, I'm going to put myself in a scenario where I have to win every immunity from Final 7. If I don't win every immunity from that point on, then they should send me home. Maybe he comes back and is able to not have a big explosion like that and still play good.
Especially since they don't do survivor auctions anymore. I feel like, regardless, I think he would have learned his lesson from the first time.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, even that, like, I feel like he has a personality that could blow up his game when he's not like thinking very thoroughly about like what he's doing. Like he can be a little emotional at times in terms of like what he's wanting to do and everything. Because like I actually had him and Ben like roughly in the same area because I view their games as like the same kind of thing, except I give Mike the slight edge because I value immunity wins over playing idols.
Yeah, and Ryan likes his immunity beast, so like obviously he was going to be higher on my list.
Yeah, you had him at 16 and I had him at 30.
Another big difference.
Yeah, we're getting some of this middle area is definitely one of us had them pretty high and the other had a little lower.
Yeah, I mean, like, and that's fair. I feel like just like with anything, especially when it comes to favorites or who we think played the best, a lot of things will be determined by personal preference, and like especially in the middle, because like that's a lot more open to interpretation.
Yeah, yeah, and how we also did it because we did it differently. We're gonna value different things
Yeah.
over the others. So
Yeah.
okay, let's move on now. No, okay, wait,
To
there.
good old Nick Wilson. Now, we mentioned about how Winners at War, we got to see these people not have a winners in it. Thing is, I really enjoyed Nick the first time I watched him on David versus the Goliath.
Yeah.
The thing is, the thing that got me was he went after my boy Tyson. And then it was like, no, sir. The thing is, like, the fact that he was in a David versus Goliath thing had a very strong alliance with Christian Hibicki.
Yeah.
And, you know, playing from the bottom and then, you know, kind of like navigating the best way he could. It was kind of like an underdog win that you kind of could get behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's also very interesting about him is he was supposed to be the first boot of the season. He was going to be voted out, at least going after immunity, after the immunity challenge. He was the target, but because of what happened with Pats, as they're going back from the immunity challenge, he gets medevaced. It essentially gave Nick that extra time to properly bond and get a better footing of the game. But yeah, he had a pretty abysmal first 3 days of Survivor. But yeah, he, you know, as the only David to make it to the end, he had, you know, already a great story to pitch. He was a public defender, so he knows how to talk at the end, especially.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Come in handy.
Exactly. And, you know, he's up against, I think, the biggest goat of the season, and Mike White, who's already got money and everything. So, you know, like, there's going to be people who are just not going to vote for him if that's what they're viewing. So
That's fair. I guess like when I was watching Mike White play and stuff, I never really took that into account because like he did play a very strong game.
Yeah, I think he played a better game. But I think that, yeah, that was just at the end they weren't going to. I think there are some people who definitely took that into account of just like, hey, I know Nick doesn't have a lot of money comparatively. And probably
especially, yeah. That makes sense. And especially since he wasn't he a defense attorney?
Yeah,
for like, you know.
Yeah, it was a public defender, so you're actually like barely making any money off that. Like you're making ends meet barely.
Yeah. So that's another thing.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, that is Nick Wilson. Moving on now to the most recent winner of Survivor. We got Marianne O'Ketch.
Here's Marianne.
Honestly, I really like Marianne's game. I think you know, it was similar to Erica's, who's down there at number 29, except the difference is we got to see her game from start to middle to end. Whereas with Erica's, we saw a little bit of the middle game. We saw nothing at the start, a little bit of a middle, and then we saw her end game.
Yeah. And, you know, she's also one where kind of similar to Nick was in like an underdog position. Like, you know, she was the bottom of her core 4 alliance. And, you know, thankfully she made it to the merge. And even then she wasn't part of the 7. And the 7 kind of like, you know, like we're targeting people. And then Marianne was kind of able to move from there. However, Marianne was able to get an extra vote, was able to get 2 idols by herself, one of which she didn't even have to play, and she used that as a flex at Final Tribal Council to be like, boom, I had this, I didn't play it. I could have to really shook up the game, but I knew that it would be more advantageous of me not to play this advantage.
Yeah. If we were ranking this by Final Tribal Council performances, she's a top 5, actually. Like, I really think that she had one of the best Final Tribal pitches we have seen in Survivor. Like, she got, I don't think a lot of people were going in there thinking that they'd vote for Marianne at the end. and she was the best person at actually telling her story, her narrative of what got her there, and had that the big flashy idol exposure really kind of like made everyone realize, wait a second, or were we thinking of this the wrong way. And so I think if any future Survivor players are looking to write down and document how to construct a final tribal performance, I think Marianne's is a great one to go back and watch.
Yeah, and I feel not only that, but like the fact that she was like not considered a threat throughout most of it, and then ended up taking one of the biggest threats, definitely in recent seasons with Omer, and doing so, and like not only she was the one that was like organized it and everything, had backup plans, stuff, used her advantage. Very smart cookie. She was smart. She was very, very smart, and just very likable because she was her genuine, like, fun-loving self. And like, thankfully in this season, I know like occasionally it would get on people's nerves, but like, a lot of people found it like endearing as well. So like, yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely a controversial winner in that aspect. It seemed like she's very polarizing. Like half of the people are going to hate her because of her personality. The other half are going to love her because of her personality. And so it kind of depends where you fall on her. So it's actually kind of fitting that she is right here, like in the middle,
like right
of
at
the
that
rankings.
middle point, too, because like 21, 22 are smack dab in the middle.
Exactly. So Marianne coming in here at number 22. We might be having to do this as a two-parter, Brian.
Yeah.
Just a heads up.
I kind of figured. Do you want to end it here? So
let's do one more. Let's do this, and then we'll do the top 20 in the next one.
All right.
Okay.
So on the flip side, right smack dab in the middle, we got Adam Klein. Now, Adam is, also came from a very, very big season, Millennials versus Gen X, it being Joe's very first season of Survivor watching.
Yeah, my first winner pick. He was my first ever winner pick.
There was something where he was someone where you could definitely get behind. I was, a fellow nerd and stuff, and I did like him throughout the season. I will say, like, he did have a bit of an underdog story, and then there was this whole like rivalry he had with Jay and everything. And I say, like, his mother going through stuff is something that was played up a lot. I feel like it is an important part of like his story and stuff. Preferably, I would have liked less in the sense where I wanted him as himself to shine more when watching that. But it was something that, made a lot of people connect with him and everything. And, like he is like to be able to navigate that crazy of a season. And then also having that one advantage, which is low-key a disadvantage, because when it comes to rewards and stuff, some people can get very bitter, or like, like especially if like you're taking away, but like he was smart about it, offering it and everything.
Interestingly, he actually used it as an advantage by him not playing it and like making it a public thing that he's not playing it here. And he still got to go. Like it wasn't like he said he's not doing it and then didn't even get the thing. He still ends up being able to go on the rewards. So it's I think Adam plays a very messy game in the first half of the season, but ends up getting into a very good power position going forward and takes out the big threats that he needed to take out throughout the game. And even though that there are some of these bigger players who I think played bigger, better games on him
Yeah.
in the season. He's someone who doesn't get to the end though by luck. It does feel like he still played the game and ended up beating them, despite them having played good games up to that point of their elimination.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I want to get, I feel like we've forgotten some of the rankings here for other people too. Marianne O'Ketch was.
I know that one was super close.
Yeah. I had her at 20 and you had her at 23.
Yeah. Like I said, personal preference there. How was did we say Nick?
Yeah, I don't think we said Nick either. I had him at 24 and you had him at 20.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And did we get Mike Holloway?
Yes, we did, because I ranked him like at 16.
That's right. Okay. Then let's end out here with Adam Klein. Let's see. So you had him at 21 and I had him also at 21.
Yeah, it just
So
worked out.
Exactly where he ends up here. So that one was decided.
Yep, we agreed.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so that's going to do it here for the first part of this winner ranking. Of course, we're going in super in depth here, so stay tuned. I'll probably upload this honestly either the same day or day after, so you might be getting a lot of content in a short time here. So
it would be rather fitting if you did it the next day, because it would be the day after.
The day after, exactly. Okay, so yeah,
gotta get one more joke in.
Exactly. Okay, so yeah, that's gonna do it for this episode, and we will see you guys in the next one.
All right, peace.